Hi, I'm Beth Riebenstorff with the Reby Homes team, and we have a very special guest today. I have learned a great deal from today's guest, and I just knew that he would be the absolutely perfect person to address the topic of anxiety and uncertainty as we're all dealing with the COVID-19 impact. So Travis Webb is a really remarkable human being and a therapist who specializes in helping folks work through anxiety, depression, addiction, and trauma. He's also co-author of a book called Why Teens Fail, What to Fix. It's a book for parents that are facing tough issues with their teens. Really well worth picking up if you have some teens. So Travis, well, he uses a variety of education and coping strategies, and one in particular is really, really helpful. So we had a technical glitch with our Zoom recording. So I'm going to do my best to explain the horse and the rider analogy, and then we'll resume with Travis and have our talk. So Travis describes two parts of our brain. In the analogy, the horse is the limbic system, the part of our brain that reacts really rapidly and uses emotions to ensure safety. And that's the one that usually is responding when it's in fear. And it's located at the bottom of the brain, and it sits on top of our spinal cord. And the rider in the analogy is the rational thinking, learning part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex. It's located at the top of the brain, and it regulates all the other parts of the brain. And it makes decisions based on context, on information, on analysis, and it's really good at the logical thinking part. So the question that he poses is, who's in charge? We all have a horse and a rider. Which one's in charge? The horse or the rider? And the answer is, it depends. If a horse is startled, let's say by a loud noise or a firecracker, or if it's injured, ill, or traumatized, the horse is going to respond automatically when in fear, and there's not much a rider can do until something occurs. So the rider may or may not be able to control the horse depending on how the rider reacts and what the rider does to guide the horse. And sometimes if the horse is triggered, the rider goes off the horse. So we each have our own triggers, and we each have both horse and rider. So with that background, we're going to pick up our chat with Travis, and I think you'll really enjoy learning what he has to share, especially in today's environment.
A real life example of
Right.
a spooked horse. Well, it's every day. Matter of fact, even disconnection through a video feed when we're trying to talk with each other and it's not working. You might feel your heart rate kind of pick up.
Mm-hmm.
You might feel some frustration kind of pick up, like, why isn't this working? There's three major things that spook this horse: threats to freedom,
Mm-hmm.
threats to safety, and threats to connection. Those are the big three. And people might say, well, aren't those one and the same, or are they similar? Yes, they hold hands with each other, but I break them apart just for the sake of understanding it. So a real life example, let's say that you're one of those many people who find out suddenly you don't have a job.
Mm-hmm.
You're not an essential business. I mean, think about what having some financial security, or at least some predictability with finances, does as far as freedom and safety goes. You've got two of the three that are going to spook this horse. The emotional brain is going to flare up, and you're going to see an emotional expression. There might be some anger, there might be some words, there might be some behaviors that go along with that. What it takes to regulate that emotional brain, again, that's where the tools come in. I don't ever want people to think we're trying to get rid of this brain. We're trying to train it, like a rider training its horse. This horse is powerful. We want it in our life. But an untrained lower brain can be messy.
Right.
Divorces, fights, arguments, bad blood. It's all in the absence of a cortex that's really trying to look at this through a rational lens. I think that I think that when, in relation to our own brain, when that brain lights up, and we manage somehow to get kind of back in the saddle of it, the truth is normal life usually ensues.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like that word normal very much, because what's normal to him or her isn't normal to me or them. Um, but yeah, we're not sitting in a very normal or familiar space right now. We've got kids at home. We've got spouses at home. In some cases, we're used to having a little space, a little wiggle room. We're used to what's familiar, and
Mm-hmm.
when we interrupt the familiar, then we start seeing that rational brain become less rational, and that irrational brain kind of
Mm-hmm.
flare up. So I love using the body to help with the lower brain. Remember what this part of the brain sits on top of. This brain stem, this nervous system, this when we use the body to signal up to the horse rather than right or down, its body up, we can have some wonderfully
Mm-hmm.
effective experiences in regulating this abrupt brain. So breathing, specifically diaphragmatic breathing. When you take an inhale, this is a little tip I teach my clients. When you take a deep breath, it's not this. We're not
Right.
lifting up the shoulders and filling up the lungs. A deep breath is actually when your belly flexes out and down. In fact, everybody could try that while they're listening to this. Taking a
Mm-hmm.
breath where the belly expands out and down. That means your diaphragm is pushing down and out. When you get oxygenated air to the bottom of the lungs, when the belly gets to flex out, it signals the brain, we're actually doing okay right here. It's one of the stabilizing techniques that we use on the horse. It benefits the rider. There's a couple others, and these are going to sound silly, but they are phenomenal in their effectiveness. And we do them already without even knowing. Shrug. When you shrug shrug many times, yeah. When you shrug your shoulders, you've got all these nervous meridians that drape through. These muscles here are sitting right off the brainstem. They're easily tensed. This is why a shoulder rub feels so good when you've got a
Mm-hmm.
lot of tension in you. Imagine kind of shoving traffic along the freeway a little bit, loosening up traffic. It's where shrugging came from. It's kind of a diffusal or a diffusion. It's kind of a whatever. I don't know. Smiling is another one. You lift some major meridian points in
Mm.
the face when you smile. So taking a 10-second pause to breathe,
Mm-hmm.
to kind of shrug and smile, I would be shocked if someone told me on the other side of those 10 seconds, I feel worse. I've never seen it. Now, again, it's not the whole answer. It's
Right.
what primes the pump. We still need right or down thinking, but the body up kind of preps us for this space of thinking. And anyone that is 100% physiology, or anyone that's 100% top brain mental, I say it's both. It's not either or, it's
Yeah.
both. Use the body as an ally, use the brain as kind of the trainer.
Right.
Yeah, so that's the prep, this body. Now we've got to introduce some thought. What does the rational brain have to say about this trigger or this event that's spooking this horse,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak? I might have to breathe and move a little bit when it comes to the fact that my job just got put on hold. Take some time, create some space with the body, but then use some rational thinking, which, Beth, let me turn it back to you. What are some rational thoughts you would coach someone to use if they just found out that they don't know they're going back to work in May or June?
Right.
What kind of thinking would you introduce to them?
So, what does that mean? What could it mean? What are the opportunities? What's the worst case? What does that now open up for future possibilities?
Uh-huh. So lots of
What are
questions.
some alternatives?
Yeah.
So that's just where I happen to go, is to, I guess I seek to get an accurate foundation
Uh-huh.
and kind of bring it in all the thoughts and then decide which thoughts deserve to stay, which are accurate, which are true, which are not true, and which ones will serve going forward.
I love it. You've got a powerful writer, Beth. You've got a healthy writer sitting up on the saddle. Lots of good questions, some analytical questions, some, hey, what's the worst that could happen? What's the best that could happen? I like affirmations in that moment too. Things are going to be just fine. This is just a lot of fear hitting me at once, but the truth is things work out. We really are going to be okay on the other side of this. I don't know what that looks like yet, but we have lots of options.
Mm-hmm.
The limbic horse loves to hear its rider calm it.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't want people overthinking this in my office. I don't want them coming in and going, what are the specific phrases and exactly what are, no. Children are very limbic.
Yeah.
When a little kid comes in screaming because someone cut them in line when they were doing hopscotch or whatever, we speak limbic language to that child. We don't give it a bunch of heavy duty, analytical, we don't sit down and teach life's lessons. We kind of validate, oh, that's a bummer. I'm sorry you got cut. You can jump right back in line. We give it some simple solutions once we've studied the limbic brain. And adults, they benefit from the same simplicity.
Mm-hmm. And it works for adults too. Yeah, that does not feel good that my financial future is uncertain.
Yeah.
But it still is what it is. Now what?
Yeah.
So I guess a lot of people are looking at, how do you get through that? How do you move? Because there is no avoiding it, right? So like in the 5 stages of grief, there's this bartering stage of, well, maybe if.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where many of us are right now of, can we open up the economy? Can we do it quicker? No, don't do it quicker. And we have such uncertainty because the data isn't certain.
Yeah. The brain loves certainty. It loves familiarity. It loves predictability. It's why we're enamored with fortune tellers and magic wands and time travel. And, the brain loves to kind of know what's coming. And unfortunately, that's just not the reality that we live in. So rather than helping somebody get to predictable as fast as possible, I like to teach them how to sit in the unpredictable, because that's a much more common occurrence. The unpredictability is a major part of life, growth, development, relationships. If you took unpredictability out of life, there wouldn't be a whole lot of flavor.
Right.
We wouldn't care much to go to the movies because we already would know the end. People who are healthy are not constantly living in the familiar. They're thriving in the unfamiliar.
Mm-hmm.
They've learned how to take the road as it comes. The best riders sitting on horseback are not the ones that stay in the stable. The best riders are out kind of pushing it. I love watching guys who know how to mountain bike downhill. I mean, that they take everything in stride. They're trained to take the unpredictable. So that's a misconception that a lot of people have, is that I've kind of got to know what's next. How do I do this next? The better that we can say, I don't know what's next, but the truth is I've done the unknown 1,000,000,000 times in my life, and I'm going to do it again with this just fine.
Right.
This is going to work out. This pandemic, it's going to be tough, and yet it's going to be a blessing in so many ways. It's given me access to the emotional gym to exercise some of these tools of staying regulated.
Mm-hmm.
Now, compounding the stress with worry, there's already stress because of the environment, the pandemic. When you take your top brain and you stress out about what the horse is doing, it only stresses this thing more. That's a compounding of stress. We want to use this brain like a safe parent working with an unstable child. we've got to have that voice inside of us a little bit that says, I've done this before. It's going to be tough, but tough isn't a problem. I'm going to go through this. It's going to be fine. People will say, well, how do you know it's going to be fine? And I'll say, that's just it. You don't. You don't get to know if it's going to be fine. I love teaching tools because master craftsmen and craftswomen who know their tools, they know where they're at in the toolbox, they know what tool to take on the job. Those are the people that are very effective in their careers. They can solve problems with the tools they have.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a handful of tools that I think are beneficial, but for the sake of time, let me give you one that I just think works wonders. And the reason I like it for this specific epidemic is because we do have access to each other, right? People talk about the 6 foot, and we're not seeing friends. We can do video. We've got our spouses at home, or we've got friends that we can talk to on the phone. One of my favorite tools is to boost up the connection when unpredictability is present. We talked about the big 3: freedom, safety, connection. So we're going to talk about how to boost connection, and I'll give you a kind of a nutshell version of something that we go into depth in private practice. There's an equation I like to teach people when it comes to bulking up connection. V plus V equals C, okay?
Okay.
Vulnerability. This is me sharing what's going on with me emotionally, which isn't always what's going on with people anymore.
Right.
I think a lot about these things, you know. We don't get very vulnerable on social media. Vulnerability plus validation of that vulnerability. Me seeing you and hearing you as you are, accepting you with your stress, sitting with what you're going through, not trying to fix this. This is not an F. This is a V. We're not trying to fix their problem. If someone comes to me and says, I'm really stressing out about this, I don't know how things are going to go, I don't have to get them past it, through it, and all better right now. I might invite them to use some of those body work tools we just talked about, and then sit in that and let me sit in it with you. When people get validators that come into this vulnerable space with them, it automatically builds the sense of attachment that we have with each other. It's human need for attachment. It's not just a want or a wish. It's a hardwired need.
Yeah. So V plus V equals C, and C being connection.
Connection.
And that's one of those 3 important things.
It's one of my favorite when it comes to connection. That's one of my favorite tools. It's something that anyone listening to this can go and try today. You can take 5 minutes today and pick your favorite listener, or if you have somebody that doesn't know how to listen, you can invite them. I just need you to hear me and validate me. This is what I'm going through. This is what I'm feeling. If you can get that person to sit in that space of validation, it does something to you. Myth number 1 is it's going to kill you. It's not going to kill you. One of my favorite books that you'll ever read on anxiety is it's a book called DARE, D-A-R-E. It's an acronym. The author is Barry McDonough. So it's one of the first things he teaches us in that book is your heart rate might be at 130 beats per minute. Your palms might be sweating. Your mind might be racing. Your legs might be shaking. It's not going to kill you. Panic attacks don't kill you. We can compound the panic pretty quick by buying into the story that this is going to kill me. I'm going to have a breakdown. I'm going to pass out. I'm going to fall over. No, you're not. Your horse is trying to tell you something about the journey. Is all that's going on. Think of your limbic system as an alarm system. Panic and anxiety, stress, fear, these are alarms They're not what's wrong with you. They're trying to talk to you about something real or perceived that is off. And that's the frustrating part about the emotional brain, is it doesn't necessarily mean there is something to panic about, but it is perceiving it as such.
Right.
The horse believes that the coiled up hose is a rattlesnake. It's not discerning very well. That's the cowboy's job up here in the saddle. Oh, that's just a hose. The horse is still spooking. It's still backing up. When you start to feel anxiety come on, give it a quick shot of, this isn't going to kill me. This isn't going to even hurt me. This is just my brain believing we've got a major, major crisis on hand that I have to deal with right now. No, I don't. I can take a deep breath. It's one of my definitions of trauma. People who have trauma or traumatic flashbacks or post-traumatic stress, this is a brain and a nervous system that is wired with the hypersensitive alarm, saying what happened could happen again. What's happening now is going to lead to something bad, like what happened then led to something bad. We can compound that stress really quick when our traumatic brain, our traumatized brain flares up. So it is with the anxious brain, the fear-based brain. So we talked a little bit about some strategies to kind of prep this horse for the rider down commentary or messaging. I tell you, one of the things about pressure, and it's going to go right along with what we just said about anxiety. Stress and pressure might be interchangeable. What you say about your pressure system has a lot more to do with the pressure system than the pressure system itself. When we fear fear, when we fear pressure, when we worry about, is my release valve on or off? You know, am I doing okay or not? That's really where you see things get unmanageable. One of the questions you and I talked about was when is it time to seek professional help? When would you say it's appropriate to talk to a counselor? And I would say, well, really, that could be anybody. That could be any of us. But I think that if you're struggling with any of the management tools that we talked about, if you've tried some of these things, or you go out and you try some of these things, and that brain still stays pretty unmanageable, that horse continues to buck, and it just doesn't seem to be happening between self and self, come in and let somebody help you with it.
Right.
The advice I would give you about the pressure system is to not worry about the fact that there is pressure building. It does relieve itself over time. Our brains and our bodies, they know what to do with pressure. If you keep compounding that pressure daily by worrying about the worry, you're going to find yourself sick pretty quick. Think of it like this. If you eat food, your body knows what to do with food. Nobody's thinking this through, this digestion process. Like, I wonder if it's large or small intestine yet. You know, we're letting our body do what we want, what it wants, what it knows. If you panicked about the process that your body already knows, nothing has come out and it's been 3 hours, we could really create a problem, and we could compound that problem by worrying about something that really already knows what to do. Play, laugh, jog, hike, tickle, throw a frisbee. These aren't just things we should be doing with our kids. You need it too. If you're shooting all over yourself constantly in life,
Right.
The pressure system gets to not only build and then attempt to discharge, but rebuild and then rebuild. These are people that end up having chronic anxiety, chronic stress disorders. It's not that their body doesn't know what to do with it. It's that their brain keeps compounding something that really is trying to do its thing on its own. So that's, in a small form, that's some advice I would give everybody throughout this pandemic, is let's just trust that our brains and bodies know what to do about this. Try not to worry about the worry. Try not to freak out about the state that the mind is in. These simple tools work really well, especially if we're not compounding it over and over.
Great reminder that we have everything within us that we need. It really is all there. I just wanted to end, if somebody does feel like they'd like to have a chat and just see where things are, what is your schedule like, and how might somebody get in touch with you?
Well, if you go on my website, traviswebbtherapy.com, you can book online there, but it's going to show that it's booked up for a little bit. But my secretary, if you call her, she can put you on a cancellation or a waiting list. And I found that we can get people in a lot sooner than a few months from now.
Yeah, and Sue's great, by the way.
Sue is my secretary. We love Sue.
You do Zoom meetings this way, though.
Sure.
So even right now, you have that as an option.
Yes, I do. Most clients prefer in person. I'm still working in person. We keep it 6 feet apart, and I Clorox wipe the room after each session, so we keep it pretty clean in here. But there's something about sitting in person with somebody.
Right.
You get to feel some energy with them. But Zoom is a wonderful alternative, and phone sessions are there too if it's helpful.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you for all your contributions to the world and helping us navigate it.
Well, thank you for what you're doing too.
You're very welcome. Have a great day.
Okay. Goodbye, everybody.